The night was a thief, stealing light from the sky and hope from their hearts. It was a frigid evening in late autumn when the girl arrived. 7 months too soon, a fragile whisper of life torn from the womb before her time. The hospital room buzzed with urgency, machines screaming in protest as her tiny body lay still, a porcelain doll abandoned by breath. Her mother clutched the edge of the bed, her cries a raw, jagged sound that clawed at the sterile air. Her father stood like a statue, his hands trembling as he watched the medical team battle the silence that had claimed his daughter. Needles pierced her skin, hands pressed against her chest, and then a faint, faltering heartbeat. She lived. But the victory was hollow, a fragile thread stretched thin against a storm yet to come. Her name was Alara, a word her mother had whispered in prayer during those endless hours of labor. But Alara's arrival was no gentle dawn. It was a plunge into shadow. Half of her tiny frame lay paralyzed, a cruel twist of fate that left her right side limp and unresponsive. A cascade of ailments followed, seizures that shook her like a leaf in a tempest, lungs too weak to draw full breaths, and eyes that stared blankly into a world she couldn't yet grasp. For 3 agonizing months, her parents, Clara and Daniel, became pilgrims in a land of despair. They roamed from specialist to specialist, their footsteps echoing through sterile corridors, their arms aching from cradling a child whose future hung by a thread. Each diagnosis was a dagger, each treatment a fleeting spark snuffed out by reality. They were losing her, piece by piece, and the weight of it carved hollows into their once bright faces. It was on a gray, rain-soaked afternoon that the tide shifted, or so it seemed. The neurologist's office was a cramped, dimly lit room, its walls lined with books that smelled of dust and forgotten hope. Dr. Elias Marrow entered without a greeting, his presence heavy, his face a map of stern lines and shadowed eyes. He studied Alara with a gaze that seemed to pierce beyond flesh, into some unseen realm. "She's slipping," he said, his voice low and gravelly, cutting through Clara's fragile composure. "Medicine alone won't save her." Daniel bristled, ready to argue, but Marrow's hand shot up, silencing him. "You need a Maine Coon or a ragdoll cat. Bring one into your home, now." The words landed like stones in a still pond, rippling through their confusion. Clara stammered, "A cat? We have 3 children, one barely clinging to life. How can we—" Marrow's eyes darkened, his tone sharpening to a blade. "This isn't a suggestion. It's her lifeline. Do it, or lose her." The command haunted them as they drove home through the drizzle, the wipers slicing through their stunned silence. A cat. It was absurd, irrational, yet Marrow's certainty gnawed at them, a splinter of doubt in their crumbling resolve. They couldn't afford to dismiss anything, not when Alara's breaths grew shallower each night. 2 days later, they stood in a breeder's living room, staring at a litter of Maine Coon kittens. One caught their eye, a 3-month-old bundle of gray fluff, its amber eyes glinting with a quiet intensity. They named her Luna, though it felt like she'd chosen them, not the other way around. The older siblings, 8-year-old Mia and 5-year-old Sam, erupted in delight, their giggles a rare burst of light in the house. But Luna paid them no mind. She slipped from their eager hands and padded straight to Alara's crib, her movements deliberate, almost ceremonial. What happened next defied reason. Luna climbed into the crib, her paws sinking into the blanket, and began to knead Alara's paralyzed side. The motion was slow, rhythmic, a strange dance of tiny claws against lifeless flesh. Clara gasped, reaching to pull the kitten away, but Daniel grabbed her wrist. "Wait," he whispered, his voice trembling. They watched, hearts pounding, as Luna worked with a focus that seemed beyond her feline nature. She ignored the healthy left side, her attention locked on the right, Alara's arm, leg, and torso, all still as stone. The parents exchanged a glance, fear warring with a flicker of something they hadn't felt in months: hope. Days later, a masseuse named Sophie arrived, her gentle demeanor a balm to their frayed nerves. She'd been recommended to stimulate Ilara's muscles, to fight the atrophy creeping through her tiny frame. But as she knelt by the crib, she froze. Luna was there, kneading away, her paws mirroring Sophie's own techniques with uncanny precision. What is this?" Sophie murmured, her hands hovering mid-air. For an hour, she worked alongside the cat, her skilled fingers and Luna's instinctive touch weaving a duet of care. When the session ended, Sophie stood, her face pale. "I can't compete with this," she said, her voice breaking. "This cat, it's doing something I can't understand. Something more." She left that day, her bag slung over her shoulder, her parting glance filled with awe and unease. The weeks that followed were a slow unraveling of the impossible. Ilara, who'd once lain like a broken bird, began to stir. One morning, as Clara sang a lullaby through tears, Ilara's right hand twitched, then reached trembling toward her mother's face. Clara's scream brought Daniel running, and they wept together, clutching each other as Luna watched from her perch. The kitten's routine never faltered. Each night she curled beside Ilara, her purring a soft hum against the baby's chest, her paws nudging and pressing as if coaxing life back into her. The siblings, too, noticed the change. Mia whispered to Sam, "Luna's magic," and though they giggled, there was a reverence in their eyes. Months bled into one another, each day a fragile victory. Ilara's right arm grew stronger, her fingers curling around toys she'd once ignored. Her leg kicked faintly, then with purpose, as if testing its own existence. The doctors, once so certain of her doom, fumbled for explanations. "Spontaneous recovery," one muttered, avoiding their gaze. "Uncharted territory," said another, flipping through charts that no longer made sense. Clara and Daniel didn't care for their words. They saw the truth in Ilara's eyes, now bright with curiosity, and in Luna's unwavering vigil. The first birthday arrived like a dream, breaking through a nightmare. The house, once a tomb of silence, buzzed with life, balloons swaying in the breeze, Mia and Sam chasing each other, and Ilara, propped up in a high chair, laughing as cake smeared her cheeks. She stood that day, her right leg wobbling but resolute, her hands grasping the table's edge. The guests cheered, but Clara's eyes drifted to Luna, sitting apart, her gray fur catching the sunlight. The cat's gaze met hers, and for a moment, Clara felt a chill, a question she couldn't voice. Who was Luna, really? What had drawn her to Ilara with such purpose? Years passed, and Ilara grew into a girl of boundless energy, her once paralyzed side a memory eclipsed by her strength. She ran with Mia and Sam, her laughter a melody that healed the scars of those early days. Luna aged beside her, her fur streaked with silver, her steps slower, but her presence undimmed. The family never returned to Dr. Marrow. His office had closed shortly after their visit, the man vanishing like a ghost. Clara sometimes wondered if he'd known, if he'd seen something in Ilara's fate that science couldn't touch. One evening, as Ilara slept with Luna curled at her side, Clara found an old journal in the attic, a gift from her grandmother, its pages yellowed and unread. She flipped it open, and a single line, scrawled in faded ink, stopped her heart. "The gray healer comes when the soul teeters on the edge." Her hands shook as she stared at Luna through the doorway, the cat's amber eyes glinting in the dim light. A coincidence, she told herself, but deep down, she knew. Their story was no accident. It was a thread in a tapestry too vast to see, woven by forces beyond their grasp, with a kitten's paws as its unlikely needle. Ilara's life became a testament to the inexplicable, a girl who defied death, guided by a creature whose purpose remained a mystery. Luna stayed until the end, her final breath a quiet sigh beside the girl she'd saved. And though the family mourned, they smiled through tears, knowing the gray healer had left them a gift no doctor could claim, a miracle wrapped in fur, a secret they'd carry forever.